want to make sure that we are respectful of people's time and that we keep it short, brief, so that we can take as much time as we can for any questions, any comments towards the end of the presentation. So I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. We want to welcome you to TCEDC and our campus here. We want to thank everybody for their time. I know it's an evening for everyone. That's why we like to feed you, make sure that you guys don't have to worry about dinner or what's going to happen after this meeting. So, thank you for your time. It's very important for us to get input from our community, which is what these listening sessions are about. I want to thank my team, first of all. We have a great team here at TCEDC. Here present tonight are Joella, Lucas, Patty, Abby, and Gabby. So thank you guys. Whatever TCEDC does, whatever we've managed to accomplish has all been because of the TCEDC team. There is no me, or there's all a we here, there's no I in team. So thank you guys for all of the hard work that you guys put into this here little project of ours. I want to thank the De La Tierra partners, because we have been working really diligently in the past two and a half years to really build community engagement and to really build partnership. We want to make sure that we are sharing, assets, that we are sharing lifelines with needs, and going in jointly on proposals to the federal agencies, to the state agencies, and to those foundations, so that we don't compete for funds. We don't want duplication of efforts. So in our mind, that was collaborating with a lot of different entities within the community. And the collaborative that we formed out of that is called De La Tierra a la Cosecha. So I'd like to thank the partners that are a part of that today. So what tonight is all about is really giving you a little update on what we've been up to, what we've been doing, making sure that you guys have a platform where you guys can come ask questions and hear comments. I would like to elaborate, what TCEDC is all about. I want to remind you guys what our mission is. So our mission is to support the food, the land, the water, and the cultures of the people of northern New Mexico, okay? So it is important for us that all of those sectors that are part of our mission are being taken care of. So when we were created 38 years ago, the mission of TCEDC has been to create infrastructure that would be around long enough to be able to create economic development ventures within our community. So we've set out to create various programs. And there's a sheet here on our table that really depicts, what TCEDC is all about. We're part of education. We've got physical infrastructure, the Taos Kitchen. We've got a resource center to help farmers, ranchers, and any community member that is in need of filling out applications, finding resources on the internet, helping you get your FSA number and whatever needs you may have to be able to get your farm or your ranch started. We offer education in Ranching for Profit. It's going to be here on the 13th. And so, if you guys sign up and if you guys leave your information behind, you guys will become part of our newsletter mailings. And you guys will receive all of the information for all the workshops that are offered by TCEDC. We have a mentorship program. This was our first year on our mentorship program. You guys are going to get an update on that from our mentorship program specialist, Ms. Abby Moorman. And then we have the TCEDC Matanza. The TCEDC Matanza is obviously the project at hand, the biggest undertaking that TCEDC has really been a part of. And it's really been a reinvention and a renewal of a project that TCEDC had back in 2007. And it's been the revitalization of the Matanza program. So you guys will hear, a lot of the developments with the Matanza and a lot of the struggles that we've had with the Matanza. But there was a comment left back in my mind with all of the community meetings that we have and with all of the handshaking that we go out there and do, which was, what have you done for me? And specifically, thinking about a rancher or a farmer, the question is always, okay, you have 15 employees, that's great. You've created 50 jobs within the community, that's great. You've brought in, $4 million into the community, to build infrastructure. That's great, So you can go on naming and saying how many things you've done, but what have you done for me? Me specifically. The answer to that is very simple. We are community oriented. You know, we are here for the community. We are not only a mobile Matanza. We are not only a meat processing facility, you know. The Matanza program is a program. It is not only a meat processing facility. That program comes along with regenerative agriculture, you know. We've been talking about among some of the local ranchers about what regenerative agriculture really is. And we come to the conclusion that regenerative ag is just a fancy word that USDA has come to instill on us. It's cultural ways here within our community. It's the way people have been doing things for centuries within our community. It's nothing new, you know? It's nothing that's needed to be renamed or reprogrammed. I think maybe it needed to be revisited and, you know, maybe a little reminder, a little nudge here and there and back. But it's cultural ways, you know, it's the cultural grazing ways that have been part of our community. And so we want to get back to that. So with being able to provide for you is programming. It's not only a meat processing facility that we're worried about, okay? It's the success of that meat processing facility that we're worried about. It's to ensure that we are setting on the ground a facility that is going to be here for my grandchildren and their grandchildren, you know? Something that is going to be here for centuries. Most of you are 5th, 6th, 7th generation farmers and ranchers. We want to ensure that there's 5, 6 more generations that are going to be able to savor within what we've been able to leave behind as far as infrastructure. So when we talk about what have you done for me specifically, you have to think of me as an I and a we. You know, it is the community that we are all part of. It is the community that is going to keep this program going and is going to rise this program to where it needs to go. There is no I in TCEDC. There is no I in this community. So what we have done for you and what we have done has not been for us. My team will be the first to tell you that they're not the highest paid within the community. We are working towards that. You know, we are working to building projects that are going to be able to have very competitive pay, you know, within our staff, within our team. So all the efforts that go in, you know, to TCEDC is with the thought from the background and to the forward. So we are thinking about you guys, the community. We are thinking about who the TCEDC team is as well. We'd like to open these opportunities up and make sure that you guys do have a say and ask us, you know, what have we done for you lately? You know, and so with not much further, I want to turn it over to Lucas Salazar. You know, I'm proud to introduce you. You know, Lucas Salazar, this is our project development manager for the Matanza program. A lot of you have heard his name. Many of you have maybe met him. But a lot of you haven't, you know. He's been a myth kind of in the background. And so for those of you who haven't met him and had only heard of him, it's not a myth. Here he is, you know. He's alive, he's well, and he has solely been hired to work through the mobile Matanza development. His sole existence is mobile Matanza. He does nothing else for TCEDC. We want him nowhere else but to make sure that that facility is ready to go and is solid and successful beyond its creation. And so this is the man who's going to bring us to the next level. This is the man that has brought us forward. When we talk about things being delayed, you best be assured that after this presentation, things have been delayed, but it hasn't been because of us. So, you know, I want you guys to know that we've been working diligently, that we've given it 110, 150%, that we have done everything within our power to move it as far as we've been able to get. But we're not giving up, you know. We do not know the word no. There is no no in our language, you know, so we will thrive through and we will, you know, be successful with this endeavor. If it's next year, we're not talking about timelines anymore. There's no dates being put out there. We will get it done. When it is done, it is solid and it can stand on its own. And that's how I always say it. And here's Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mercedes. Good introduction, I would say. Appreciate that. So let me just real quick, just give you guys the agenda of what we're going to do together today. So I'll give you a quick little introduction, and I think about half of y'all in here probably know me, I think, directly, and maybe the other half don't. Then I'm going to go into the update, the nitty-gritty, to really let you see kind of from my perspective the developmental hurdles and what we're bumping into. Then we're going to spend a good little chunk of time talking about food safety regulations, and we're going to split it into 3 parts. We're going to talk about what the producer needs to think about if they're going to try to put an animal into USDA commerce, what the processor has to think about when they do that, and then what FSIS has to think about. So it'll kind of give you the full picture of understanding it's a community effort to bring one of these animals in a really safe way into commerce. And so to kind of understand each party's role in that. Then buying contracting, I want to, we haven't signed the policies yet for our buying and contracting. The ideas, I think, are all out on the paper. And that would be the part that, honestly, anything you guys have to share in the Q&A and comment section, we'll be very interested to receive it. But that part, I have maybe a particular interest in seeing what your thoughts and ideas could be on that. And thinking in terms of multi-species. A lot of times you might hear me start talking about beef, and it is true. Cattle are going to be the main economic driver of this project. However, the small ruminants, our lambs and our goats, pork can play a big role. There's not many people throwing their hats in this region into pork, but perhaps the Matanza project could actually change that, because now it offers opportunity. People can feel secure. They have a solid place to take that pig and know that it's going to come out. That the folks can still feel good about the work they did, and that, as a processor, they were happy working with us. And then after the buying contracting section, I'm going to go pretty quickly through the NM Growing program and the opportunity or not. You as individual producers will have to see if it seems like it's a good fit for you. And then mentorship program, I'm just going to briefly summarize it, but Abby will be here for Q&A and any comments on that. And then, at the end, we'll be more wide open for listening. So current major obstacle. So the biggest thing, and this has been since about March, where we found out that this was going to be an issue for us, is the legal description of the property out there. So I'm going to go ahead and take a second and show you guys what's going on. So that tract, you see this long blue tract of land here. This is the tract that has part of the landfill on it. And you see this little area carved out there, that's county ops. And then our project is, partially constructed just on the diagonal corner. It's northwest corner is where we have 2.5 acres that are supposed to be carved out for the project. The town had done GIS work to create this boundary. A lot of civil engineering was done based on this GIS work to do that boundary. But once we got through our wastewater engineering and it came time to put the application on the desk of the environmental department in Santa Fe, they're like, okay, well, this is great, but we still need the official plat. And all of a sudden it created this eruption of, oh my God, like we have all this formal engineering and all this work done, but the plat was never formalized. And so now the county, so this, as you see, it says this is a 104-acre tract of land, and the town cannot dedicate that entire 104 acre for this project. The vision out here is little 2.5 and 5 acre plots for different businesses, etc. And so we are basically just kind of stuck until they can work through that process of getting the survey, the recording, and everything done properly with the county. Now, we have a request for all of you, and to please spread the word. You can call the town, the executive group, and I'm going to go ahead and put them up here too, their phone numbers and stuff. But I think a really effective way to talk about this or to have an impact and maybe put more pressure on the town is to actually attend the town council meetings. So those are the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays at 4 p.m. And I believe what you need to do is like email ahead and get on their agenda. And then they'll give you 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes to speak. And
there's a public forum, and you just show up and you just take 3 minutes,
Okay. Okay, so you don't have to register at the
You
time?
don't have to register.
You have to show up at the beginning before they start? Kind of?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah, as long as you're there before 4, get on there and please put in a word. Yes, Ro?
And you do need to sign in. If you do the public comment, they'll ask for your name just for record, but you don't need to register in advance.
Yeah.
Great. So it's really cool, right? So that we can get it on file, like public documentation that this is what's going on. Because trust me, from all of the executive kind of team on this, from in here, they know, and they know every single week. So I can only bug them to the point where it's absurd, and I'm kind of like pushing that threshold right now. So yeah, y'all I think are going to be the biggest thing that could perhaps help a little bit more. So let me, go ahead.
So the county though will be the ones to,
You turn your mic on. It helps us for our recording.
Yeah, it helps
Just
us
flip
for
it
our
out.
reporting. There we go. Sorry about that. It's on, but it's not.
is it working? Can you hear me?
There you go. It's on.
We'll go ahead because I don't want to
Right,
take the
we'll go.
inspiration off.
It's
My
on, it just
understanding is that the county actually draws out the plats, correct? But we're talking to the town to, encourage the county to move forward with this?
Yeah, so, right, the recording and all that at the county office, the big courthouse and all, that's where all that happens. But the town has surveying, because they're the owners,
Okay.
and so they have surveying services that they have to purchase, which means they have to go through their procurement process, so it's this whole internal process, that's what they're doing, right? They're supposed to be like three bids and then choose the one that, they make the argument for the cheapest or that fit the job best, etc. And the procurement is, I can tell you, I have another announcement on procurement, which is great, but wow, it can take a lot of time. Even though theoretically, they call it like a 1-month process, in realistically, it probably best ends up being a 6-8 week, and then a lot of times it's probably like a 3-month, 4-month process. So yeah, just in case we have some folks in here who are willing, let's go ahead and put up, we got 575-751-2002. Call, say we want a message for the executive team, town manager, assistant town manager, what's going on with the Matanza project. We really want to be able to utilize this thing. So you got Lupe Martinez as the manager, Mark Flores as the assistant, Kathy Romero as the executive assistant.
Is there a place we could find like a prepared statement or guidance, like points that kind of would best support, like maybe if we're not super...
I think we should create that, and you can feel free to email me. So I have
Patty, our communications person,
Yeah.
there is, keeps nodding.
I'll make that for you.
Yes.
Good idea.
And the materials here on this table, there's a few avenues through which you can get to us. You just grab some of those materials. The website, and it's just tcedc.org, correct? You can find us on there real easy. All right. So that's the main thing, folks, as far as obstacles. It's certainly not the only thing, but that's the main thing holding us up. Okay, so the next thing in terms of procurement. So this is the initial phasing of the project. We're changing things up a little bit, but so the yellow here says phase 1. And if you go out there right adjacent to the county ops building, you will see these 2 units down. So this is a 50-foot long unit that is the hanging cooler. And this is rated to hold 50 beef carcasses. Then you have a cut and wrap, which is an equal size, equal dimension that right now has like a bandsaw in it and has some vacuum sealers in it. It's not fully equipped, but we're not far from being fully equipped with that. And then we just finally, in the last few weeks, got the freezer through procurement. So I was able to get that purchase order to the company, and they're just sitting there now. They can call on their money, but what we're having to do is we're having to wait until we get the contractors through procurement to build the pad that sits on, to build the loading dock, which is not drawn here, but is designed, the loading dock, so big trucks and semis and so forth will be able to come in and take, tons of product out of there. And then we're pretty sure the way the funds are working right now with the grant that we're administering, funds will go as far as to get us this guy, which is the restrooms and the employee rest area in the USDA office, because this is essential for operation. This storage unit and laundry is not essential for operations. We can take our clothes to the laundromat or figure out some way to deal with our storage in the short term, but we can't deal without this. So the peak phase 2 is kind of transitioning to freezer, loading docks, and this unit probably scrunched over here and put where that is, so then when it's time to install that later, we're not having a unit in the way of putting it down. So, and then the last thing to maybe mention on the floor plan, as far as things that maybe kind of changed, is once we finally got the wastewater engineers to do their job, we know how big of a leach field. So it's kind of like a 3-part engineering thing. There's the holding tanks for the effluent, and then it goes into an advanced treatment module, and then from there it goes out to a leach field. And that footprint of that is big. And the initial civil engineers, not having done the wastewater, which is why we kind of let them go, kind of put the cart before the horse. They did all this drawing before they really knew what the wastewater solution was going to be. And now that we do, we kind of know we're going to end up needing to designate this whole sector for that wastewater, so it's probably going to push some buildings over that way.
So the building needs to be smaller?
Nothing needs to be smaller. So these are walkways that can easily, in the short term they'll be outdoor, just like concrete pads, just to get between the different. So imagine this is like a boxcar, boom, boxcar unit, boom. That one's a little different. It's like a prefab. It's like a panels that link together to make this freezer. That will be like a boxcar. This will end up being like a double boxcar. These are double boxcars, both of these.
So there's like a courtyard that's designed on?
Exactly, yeah, like,
What happens there?
Yeah, hopefully some landscaping. maybe we'll get some artists to come in, some installations or something.
Karaoke nights.
Be like the horror house at Halloween, more like.
So
Yeah.
where are the loading docks for the livestock?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's so it's hard to see, but that does say corral.
Okay, all
Because
right.
so in the first phase of this, we're going to have to still harvest with the mobile Matanza, and so this is designed, and this is actually like properly done and ready to go right now. Like this has a double swing door that goes, and it can rail over the half beef carcasses right in there from the mobile Matanza. So that's ready to go, and that's how this is going to have to operate in the first phase of the operation there. But as soon as we can, it's probably going to take another cycle of capital outlay funding to get to where we can buy this, which is a drip cooler that can hold 30 carcasses, and then a slaughter floor that is designed to have four bays of large, so beef. We can be working 4 beef on the floor at any given time. And this is really this to me is kind of the linchpin of the efficiency of this whole project, is all of a sudden, the mobile Matanza really neat what it does, can go field harvest and all that, right? But it's really inefficient. You're stuck just with one animal at a time, and it's pretty cumbersome, it's tight quarters. Whereas this, all of a sudden, you're gonna have a team of, 6 guys, 7 guys in there able to put up, 20 animals easily in a day. Even more, if we need to. So that's kind of the vision there. And that's where we are at Landfill Road. Now, there's political pressure here to show proof of concept. Again, this started all the way back in 2007. as a vision, and we have a few cycles of operating and then going down, and here we are, right, with a big investment, a big influx of cash, goodwill from the state, and we gotta make this go. Now, realistically, we know we're still a ways out here. When we really think about all of the utilities and having to get through procurement, being, you know, we are reliant on the town as the fiscal agent to administer these monies. It's just realistically, it's not going to get done that quickly, but we can get the one that we already have been using out here in the backyard, we can get that going really quickly. And we've talked to engineers and done all the preliminary kind of thinking around that. And that, as soon as we get approval from the state to allow us to divert some of the funds from this project to do that renovation, then it's going to be quite quick. Again, we're not going to talk about timeline. I know everyone has that question, like when, and that's going to be a difficult question to answer, but it'll be way, way sooner than it would take, regardless of how many guns we had pointed at this target. It's just, we're pretty sober about how much is left to go yet on this one. So to have services rendered more quickly, we're going to go ahead and refurbish this little processing center in the backyard. And it's going to look like this. Let me explain the changes here. So previously, all it was this little, right? So the mobile Matanza would come in, it would chill and age the carcasses in this little cooler. And then honestly, this little room here, which as you see, I mean, it's only a 40 by 20. So it was only a 20 by 20 that almost half of the space was taken up by the carcass cooler. People were trying to cut the animals, were trying to grind the animals, and trying to pack the animals in a safe and efficient manner. And, you know, I never fully got to go in there and watch it myself. I just got to see how it was equipped and see the floor plan. And I think it was very difficult. And it was a very difficult working environment. And so what we're going to do now, this used to be the offices. So this is the big improvement in the refurbishment, is that all this is going to get up to code for a commercial kitchen, so it will have the washable walls, ceilings, and some kind of good floor that can handle a lot of scrub down. And the cutting is essentially going to get done in that initial room, but then the packing and grinding and labeling will all get done in this room. And then we're going to add a freezer right to it, so that, because right now it's kind of cumbersome, you have to go out, down this walkway and come around to the freezer and cooler that are existing for storage, but we're gonna build it up and put the freezer right there so that all of that product is just efficient and easy. And then these will still be there for community rental or whatnot, or surplus space, but we're gonna have to pour a little concrete pad and kind of pull those to the side to make space for them. So that's kind of the vision for here. Yes,
What's
sir?
the processing capacity of that system?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? If the biggest thing when you're talking about beef is if we're going to really age or honor aging, and especially if we're going to honor 21-day aging. I have this at about as an average of 12 beef a week. I think that's what it's going to be operating. If it's just beef, if someone's just trying to just get grinder beef out of there, we can push it faster. If it's just pigs, we can push it faster. If it's the small ruminants and people don't want longer than a week age, we can push it faster. So, yes, sir.
How many per week did you say?
12 a week.
You have enough cooler space for that?
It's as an average, and if we are going to be grinding some of them, it's hard to say. If they're all aging, it probably drops down to 8, But if we are doing some grinders or some other species and just kind of looking at animal equivalent units, we can push it more than 8.
So is that enough work for, because you're gonna have a meat cutter and probably others to do vacuum packing and stuff?
Yeah, I'm seeing this as a three-person team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Including myself. I'll be doing the knocking and probably the lead cutting, and then having to meet kind of counter folk to help. Okay. All right. So now shifting, and yeah, please, any more questions on that, we can circle back. But now, like I said, the three kind of parties involved, and I'm gonna look at this in terms of food safety, and then non-food safety. Like, this is just what kind of ends up on everybody's radar, practically, realistically, once we get into USDA production. So, from the producer, it's really not that much, folks. Like, your thing is raising a healthy animal. Like, that's the thing, really. Because when it comes to food safety, they're going to do an antemortem inspection. The animal has to be ambulatory, which just means that it can walk. So animals that can't walk themselves into the kill facility cannot be USDA inspected animals. And that is not something that will be condemned. That will be something that they will say, you can't do that here, you have to come pick it up, and you can find a custom exempt processor to process that for you. You can do that in your backyard. We're not going to tell you anything about it. But they're not going to let you put it into the food supply. Now,
is there an observation period for that? For that animal, do they have to be able to stay on their feet for a certain amount of time and walk in?
they just have to be able to walk into the facility of their own accord. Because this is another thing. Because you maybe have one that you could get in there by, let's just be realistic here, maybe you have to kind of beat it half to death to get it to go in there, but then they're going to throw the animal welfare flag. And so it's frankly, it's going to depend on the inspector in that case. But I think most inspectors, if they watch like 2 or 3 guys go out there and start beating on the animal to get it in, they're probably gonna whistle blow. And that means if you don't respect that, then they'll call their boss. They can tie you and shut you down. They'll call the bosses or in terms of the whole thing. And they have the authority to do this enforcement type stuff. I mean, they rarely do it, but they do have like a badge like a cop. They have it. If they need to throw it out there, they can, but very rare. Yes.
So this is pointing to the facility that's going to be by the airport. So when you take the mobile Matanza somewhere, it's up to the landowner or rancher, whatever, to have a proper holding to expire that animal.
Absolutely. And there's a whole set of requirements for that, as far as the running water and sufficient place for the animals to stay, if they're going to stay there for so long, they need feed, etc. So that owner would have to do that. What we have kind of to resolve that right now is a few staging areas. Right? We have one here on Camino Medio.
Yep, because we have a staging area also with a chute and little pens in our corrals.
Yeah.
If needed.
Great. Yeah. So we can just talk about to make sure it meets the spec, and then if it does, then we can do it on that location.
Kind of specs or whatever we need.
Yeah. Yeah, really, if it's a nice corral and you have the potable water there, and this is the one thing. If you decide you want to do a staging area, the one thing, just make sure you have your water certificate. Because if it's a private well, you need to have that tested by a lab, and then it has to be refreshed on a 6-month period. If you have municipal water, you're good. That's the one thing that bureaucratically, besides just having the environment right, you're gonna have to.
So looking for coliform, is that?
Yep, fecal, yeah. Sir. Okay, then the only other thing really that you have to be worrying about as a producer is this residue thing, which is just treatments, right? Like antibiotic treatment. So typically antibiotics on their label, they're going to say it's a 30-day withdrawal period, I think is what's typical. You just have to go with what is on the label. And so you're just signing a little affidavit that is guaranteeing that you've done that. And that's obviously I would say 100% make sure that's true, but that's the thing that they're going to take your word on it. Yeah. Okay, and the non-food safety. This changed in the last 5 years in Colorado. The ground inspections, as long as you were I think within 75 miles, you didn't truck your animal more than 75 miles, you didn't have to do the ground inspections. That changed. They used to be able to go into your hide shed and do ground inspections in your hide shed, but what happened is the hide market dried up, and so the small processors were no longer storing their hides, and so then they were like, oh, we need a way to control this and document every animal now. And so And I don't know, anyone here in beef probably knows in New Mexico, can you take it to a slaughterhouse if it's really close? Or if any transportation to a slaughterhouse, do you need a brand inspection at that time? Yeah. So, again, that's not animal safety, but if you're going to deliver a beef anyway, the other animals, I believe does not apply. Don't think you have to worry about it.
So Lucas, I have a question. Who enforces that brand inspection or the owner application process? To me, I always understood it as you being the slaughter person. You know, I mean, so if you receive an animal, I guess, you look at the papers, they go in a pile. Is it the brand inspector from Colorado verifying?
It's a state
thing?
It's a state inspection thing, yeah. And that's what that log is, that brand, the cattle slaughter log, yeah, for the state. So that'll be another thing as the processor that we have on site that gets filled out for everyone.
In case the New Mexico Livestock Board came over to your facility to say, hey, I want to look at your records on what you've been processing.
Mm-hmm. And they did come by.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a couple times a year, they came by and kind of verified. And then, okay, another thing, because there's this 30-month. As soon as so for lamb, it's a year now, right? At a year, the thing with lamb is that it becomes mutton. They've started doing a physical examination. They break a certain joint and look at the calcification on that joint. And if they determine it's so much, then it's over a year. And now on your label, you can't write lamb anymore. You have to write mutton. However, they respect your record. Perhaps in some egregious case, they wouldn't. But what's happened with us and why we let the lamb go in Colorado, lamb from the process perspective, let me just say, it's difficult. You have to process such volume to really make money with it. There's that. But all of a sudden, our clients were having this issue because the USDA was saying they were over the year, and they maybe didn't have their records on it to prove because they knew that they were under a year, and so they had to have them labeled as mutton. So that's something to have a heads up on the lamb angle. And then for the beef, there's the over the 30-month, and it becomes an SRM risk, which is specific risk material, which is mad cow disease essentially. It's all of the neurological material, so it's brain, it's spinal cord, cannot end up in the animal. And what that essentially boils down to from your perspective as a producer is that you can't cut T-bone steaks out of it, because the T-bone steak is really the only steak that would be packaged that can potentially have, and does usually have, at least some of, if not, depending on how lazy the butcher was, I mean, it could have the whole spinal cord, a whole section of the spinal cord in the T-bone. And so then what happens there is you have to carve out those muscles, individual muscles, and so you end up with New York strips on the one side and tenderloin on the other. That's really your only concern. But again, it's not, that one actually is kind of food safety. I mean, because this prion thing and the mad cow, I mean, that's crazy. It's very under control, very, 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 very rare, but it's a really scary thing when it does happen. Anything else on the producer? I mean, before you go on? Yes?
Just one more question on this facility here. Will it have a kill portion for a year, or do you have to will the mobile concept go out?
It'll rely on the mobile content.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question there for the video is, will this refurbishment have a slaughter component to it, like a brick and mortar or stationary slaughter component to it? And it will not. It will be as it operated before, relying on the mobile Matanza to go to these few staging areas, and potentially we add some. We can add more. You just have to vet them out before we would want to go as a cold call with that expensive machine to operate, but if we can vet that out, we can add more staging areas.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Is there a prion issue with sheep?
There is. It's called a scrapie in sheep, and then you need to hear about chronic wasting disease in elk. And it's a scary thing, right? And it can transfer from species, it can transfer to humans, and that's why we treat it so careful. It's apparently a really, really bad way to go down. It's kind of like getting dementia really quickly. So it's not a pretty thing. Okay, so now from our concern, so that was my team. up there, or that was our Christmas card one year. And then there's one of my units. He was awesome, doing a big old pig there. That was probably a 600, 700 pound pig he's doing. And what we have to worry about is we have to worry about sanitation, the whole plant. So basic compliance. So if you're going to be a USDA plant, you want to get your granted inspection. Basic compliance is sanitation, the SSOP, Standard Sanitation Operation Plan. You have to have that written out and kind of justified, and then your HACT. So whatever kind of category of meat processing you're doing, you have to have that whole plan written out, which is a pretty extensive plan. And for most of the facilities around here that are doing like a slaughter component and then like a cut and wrap component, you have to do 3. You have to do a HACCP for the slaughter, you have to do a HACCP for ground product, and then you have to do a HACCP for your whole muscle. They changed the terminology recently of those to intact product and non-intact product. So I think once the particle size, like if you do a really fine stew meat, for example, I think after it's less than a ½ inch cubes or something, all of a sudden you're in the non-intact category. It's because it's more sensitive. Ground beef is a more sensitive in terms of its vulnerability to pathogen growth than the whole muscle pieces are. So once you get your sanitation and your HACCP, you can operate. Now, the Code of Federal Regulation is a fat book that there's still a million things that you're supposed to do, but you could be like working towards compliance on those things and operate, whereas your HACCP plan needs to be done and your sanitation has to be good. Okay, and then when it comes to the HACCP for the kill day, just so it gives you a sense of what's on our mind, what we have to pay attention to is the dressing of the animal, and the terminology is zero tolerance, which means they can't detect any visually. You can't detect any lactate, ingesta, just throw up, or fecal. Interesting, right? I don't know if anyone here's like, hey, well, there's other things, right? Like hair, right? And I bet you a lot of you have even got processed and it comes back with some amount of hair, which to me was always interesting because the hair may or may not have fecal, right? But it probably maybe has some trace fecal. But that's the way that, just so you know, that's the way the reg reads. No fecal, ingesta, or lactate. And
What's
then
lactate?
lactate milk. So if it's a female who's lactating, you can't have the residues of the milk on there. It has to be. They typically, when that kind of stuff happens, because it does, like you cut through that tissue, milk, they don't want you to just get a hose and rinse it off. They want you to surgically try to cut it all out and create a new fresh surface. It's like a best practice for it. And so then, this is just for beef. So it's interesting, when you have the small ruminants and pigs, you only have 2 critical control points. You just have to dress them really good and then chill them. And for the way ours was written, you got 27 hours to get them down to like 49 degrees on the surface, which is really easy, a really easy CCP critical control point to meet. The lactic acid, they're concerned about E. coli in the beef, and that's why they need the lactic acid. Will kill any bits of the hair that may have that fecal trace or whatever. If you hit it with that lactic acid, it's an organic acid that will neutralize that. Then we're worrying about the SRM and the inedible materials, and the USDA is letting us know if the animal is over 30, then we give it like a different color tag, and we make sure that we're throwing away all that material. There's a later disposal too, like I say, because you still have that spinal. They really expect you to have the cord itself fully removed, but then even the bone matter that was touching the spinal cord, they need to know that gets removed and on the processing floor, and so that's showing that you don't have any T-bones being packed for that carcass essentially. And then in the non-food safety realm, we're worrying about the humane handling essentially, which they do expect a canopy. I never had one. We had full intention to get one, but again, that's one of these things that wasn't under the category of sanitation or HACCP. So as long as they see a plant kind of working toward all of the regs, all of the regulations, they're going to work with you as you have money and time and energies to improve your plant. And then, yeah, feed water. Feed doesn't come a thing until you board them. As soon as you're boarding them overnight, then the feed becomes a thing. And then humane kill. If you don't kill them humanely, they shut you down, and that has been part of the story of our small processors here in New Mexico and having some issues being inspected because it's supposed to be 99 point some % success rate, so there's not a lot of wiggle room there. And then in terms of FSIS on the kill day, so food safety, their big thing is the antemortem inspection and the postmortem. And on the antemortem, it's the ambulatory thing. Again, if they can't walk, they just have to go somewhere else. They don't have to be condemned. If they have the neurological issues, they're going to call a vet, and the vet's going to assess whether or not it is. And if it is, then there's going to be a whole thing. They're going to call local health departments and go through a whole about how you discard. So there's going to be some humane euthanizing that happens on site. And then there's going to be a question about where that carcass goes, because they don't want that carcass to go anywhere that can kind of spread out into the environment. And so, like, I think the Taos landfill will probably be a place where they probably would say it's okay, because I think it has the lining. They want to know that there's like a lined, engineered type dump for that thing to go to. But again, super, super rare. I never saw it in the thousands of animals that we worked through. Brisket, that's probably the most common thing that is seen in antemortem, and that is for sure the most condemnation. That's the most cases of condemnation that we saw. So, and that's going to happen in postmortem. So brisket, he'll see it and he'll be like, okay. It's going on in this animal, and all it looks like for the folks that don't know is like its breast area just starts getting like real like puffy looking. Okay? And you just don't really know until you get in there how advanced it is. And so yeah, one could look maybe puffier than the other, but once you cut it open, I mean it's wild when you split the gut cavity. If it's an advanced brisket, it's like 100 gallons of water or something is held in that animal, and it just floods the entire workspace is just flooded. The kill tech is just like, he's got it like all over him, it's a whole scene. But that's an extreme issue, and then they'll determine if it's gone septic. They say septicemia, and if it is, then it's condemned. And so then at that point, they make you slash it up in your cooler, they put a tag on it, you have to put denaturant on it, and then it has to go to a dump. Other things they're looking for in their post-mortem is they're looking through the lymph nodes in the organs to check for measles, brucellosis, and then again, to see if it does have brisket. If it's not very advanced, it's nothing. They might just say, hey, like that fat there, because the quality of the fat on a brisket, it ends up just like jelly, like a goo jelly type is how the fat turns out. But it might just be like a patch there, and patch there, and they say, hey, cut that off, and then you guys are good. Just roll with it. So, okay, so now another shift here to the buying and contracting. So we want to buy your animals, and this is something that is going to be developed in partnership with our local ranching community. The thoughts are mostly developed again for beef, but I don't want people who are doing other species to think that we can't potentially work with you. I think for the smaller species, I think it's going to mean a larger volume. Like if you want us to help be a buyer for you and to market your lambs, say for instance, we're probably going to be thinking of something like 40 or 50 lambs that we're contracting to, because see, the way it's going to look from our perspective is we need to find a buyer of that sufficient size. And that might be like La Montañita Co-op, or it could be an institutional thing. And it's really hard for just the animal here and there to kind of justify the effort of it. I think for folks who are really at a small volume with their herds, the suggestion I would have is that you're putting them through this processing facility, and we're putting a nice label on it for you guys with all your ranch information, everything, and you guys do that marketing directly. Those direct sales, there's a lot of stuff that you can avoid if you don't ever get into wholesale. Once you get into wholesale, there's a few more things that kind of come online. But for the beef, this is kind of what we're thinking on the basic the basic requirements is that the animal has had its lifetime on pasture, of course, with reasonable exemptions, right? Like if it needs to be treated, if it sorting, of course, it can go in corrals. Like this isn't to be seen as radical, but it's like for the most part, and basically, it spends its life on pasture. It is a grass-fed and a grass-finished animal, and that does not mean that it needs to be a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. In fact, I think what the bread and butter of this is going to be from the perspective of us buying animals in and creating a label and distributing them locally is going to be the cull animals. It's going to be moms that don't breed up, bulls that aren't serving well anymore, etc. That's where we're going to be able to get a lot of meat in and keep the price point in a way that really kind of makes it a successful product. But that said, I think we want to stay open to buying animals as long as they're over 1,000 pounds. Under 1,000 pounds, just the yields that we get for the cost of the animal, etc., just really gets hard to make numbers work. Of course, that residue and withdrawal period is going to be a requirement, just because that's the USDA process. And then the NM grown requirements, which I'm going to talk about, I think, on the next slide. But it's so basic. Anyone here who wants to become one of the approved vendors through this NM program, it's very simple. But what I'm going to say is it probably doesn't make sense if you're really small. As soon as you get to a certain volume, it probably makes sense because there's some requirements that do require a little bit of investment. And I'll go over that in just a second. So yeah, volume contracts, it's implicit in what I'm saying. We want to work with you, we want to buy your animals, but it would be great to buy 10 animals at a time. It'd be better to buy 20 animals at a time. It might even be nice to buy 30 and 40 animals at a time. Yes?
I'm wondering if there's a way to, like, for smaller growers to organize, or growers, producers, kind of like a booster club for this, you know? Like, just carpooling?
Co-op.
Co-op, thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, it's like, we'll do whatever, we'll provide whatever assistance we can in this manner, right? But like our office is going to be, you know, like we're focusing on like, I mean, this is going to be a headache, trust me. Once this thing goes, like I'm going to have kind of a nightmare for a while, like getting the thing, you know, going and getting, you know, the HR figured out, and we're going to be busy with that. And I think like our commitment is to making sure that you have a solid place to go to process your animal, and a solid place to go for us to buy your animal, given that we can meet the requirements. But I do think that that's going to be a bit of the let's say like the cross-pollination, if you will, within the community to start figuring out like, wow, like they you know, Lucas really needs 20 lambs to like get that account. Let's see how we can deliver in 2020, because I know my neighbor over here has 5 more, you know. So I think that's a really thing I'm really excited about in having this here, is that it's gonna stoke a certain new energy in the community, because now you don't have to go all the way to Moriori, or you don't have to go over the mountain. I know some of you are a little closer to Las Vegas than others in here, etc. But they're all booked, right? Raton, right? Last I heard, they were booked to 2027. So yeah, like this, yeah. What we're going to focus on is making this solid. We're going to walk before we run. That's like why you guys aren't hearing about like value-added product and all this yet. We got to be able to kill these animals really well and have a strong team that knows how to do that. We got to be able to cut, pack, grind, understand how to manage our spaces, all of that. And once we get that really established, you'll probably see some opportunities come up for the value-added side of things. And then maybe the last thing on these contracts, right? We want to contract with you, and a way to maybe make more money on your animals is to try to hold them and have them at spec at a time of year when they're generally not available. That's how you can increase the value and increase your contract, right? Because I think we, certainly with beef, but you know, as a general rule, right? I mean, we have a pretty harsh winter here, especially if you get up in the mountains and such. And everyone's trying to get their animals, you know, there's a bottleneck in the whole meat processing scene from September through, people are trying to usually get it done by Christmas, but the bottleneck inevitably flows over. All the local processors end up slammed until like January and February, and then that's finally when all of a sudden there's this slump in animal availability. And it's that everyone was trying to get them off of there by the winter. So if you're willing to hold your animal and have an animal to spec in February, in March, and April, there's probably a premium at that point because the supply is down. Yes, sir.
Hey, Lucas, just a quick question on that. With your experience, what's the age of the animal usually that you would cut that reaches 1,000 pounds grass-fed?
3 years old.
Really depends on folks' feed, on their situations, if they're trying to ship them. Again, we're trying to be a New Mexico grown type idea. So I think if you're earnestly growing them here and then you're having to overwinter, I think it's kind of 18 months.
It's more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like maybe possible, but it depends on your genetics and everything, right? But yeah, it really is to get to a finished animal on grass. I think you're usually wanting to try to target for 24, 30, or even plus months.
Wow, okay, that's, yeah. So it's like a
It's 2 winters
plus.
It's 2 winters.
Yeah.
Because they're typically born in March or April,
Yeah.
right? By the time they go around, 24 months.
My 18-month calves,
Well,
they're
that's the thing.
lucky.
Well, you can't calve earlier, right? I mean, there's a lot of folks in the San Luis Valley that are calving in January and February, and then they'll get to that 1,000 pound, but it's kind of like a barely maybe, or by the time that second winter's hitting. That's the model of quite a few people who are trying to do the grass-finished beef that I'm seeing. I'm seeing like 3 things. I'm seeing the baby beef, which is even like the first year, right? Not even before the first winter. They're basically weaned, and then I see that happening. Obviously, that's not going to be a great situation in terms of yield, but it can be a great situation in terms of tenderness, if that's the quality of the carcass you're going for, right? And you could bring that to us. That's fine. Bring that carcass to us as the carcass that we process and put your label on, and you do the direct marketing. That's fine. We'll serve you. And then another category of trying to just before the second winter, right? So 18 months or maybe younger, depending on how you're doing your calving and everything. And then there's the folks who are like, you know what? We're gonna make sure it's finished. And I think that takes it more to like 30 months. I don't know if anybody knows Grady Grissom, but he's one in this region, although he's in Colorado. He's doing an amazing job getting the finish. He's getting them to grade, select, and choice, and every once in a while we've even seen a prime on 100% grass come through. But he's doing Wagyu genetics in with other marbling breeds, and he's letting them get to 30 plus months to do it. And they end up a little, they suffer on the tenderness piece. They end up being a little tougher, but the marbling is good. They're juicy and a little tough. And that's his model. That's what he's doing. There's different ways to skin a cat.
You need lots of property.
He needs lots of, yeah. He's one of these guys who has the huge allotments over there south of Pueblo. So yeah, just to think. If you guys think that kind of framework can work for you, we would love to purchase your animals. Okay, now New Mexico grown. So this is Michelle Lujan Grisham, her Food, Farm, and Hunger Initiative. And as of the 2023 report on this, it was a $24 million program. And she was looking at 3 things: to increase immediate hunger relief efforts for food insecure New Mexicans, invest in local producers' ability to support New Mexico's food system, and build the capacity of New Mexico's supply chain. And there's all these, sub-initiatives to that kind of cohesive vision. And I think for folks who are getting to some volume, this is a really neat thing because you can utilize the logos. You get on their database, so they're helping you with marketing. Anyone who's looking for New Mexico, derived products, they'll just find you on the list with your info. And it's really not that much. So the Approved Supplier Program requires that you meet the requirements of the Taste the Tradition or the Grow in the Tradition certificate. And this one I spent a long time talking with USDA officials with today, because I don't think that they realistically can expect all the small growers to carry that distribution license. And my sense is on that point is that, say in our situation, the TCC, the Matanza program is going to carry that license, and that we would be the ones that distributed as a distribution to wholesale, so that the grower themselves doesn't have to carry that, because that is something to carry. So any of you folks who have your private freezer, say you get your animals slaughtered in Chama, and then you have your freezer at home that you're storing that, you're legal, you're good, as long as you're doing that to end consumer. So when you're doing direct sales, selling a lamb directly to, or they're coming on your farm, you can deliver it to them too. As long as it's direct sales, you're still legal. You can go to a farmer's market, deliver it there, it's still direct sale. All that's good. Now, as soon as you use your little private storage to try to take that, say like 10 lambs to La Montanita, boom, that's the firewall. That's where it's not legal anymore. And so that's why they need you to have that. And so it's all of a sudden you're part of this formal database that's part of the traceability in the meat system. And go ahead.
Does that include, so thinking of your example there, I have 40 lambs that need to get delivered to La Montanita, and when I pick them up from, your plant in Manassa that came down, we're storing it in my freezer, my walk-in freezer, does that regulation then, require me to have a truck with a freezer on it to take it down to Albuquerque? Is that what I'm hearing you say? So
it requires you to be filed with the USDA, so they know you as a location through which handling of USDA product could happen to another end user. And that's how they're thinking and seeing is the wholesaling.
In other words, how do I overcome the firewall?
You have to file the form and become a piece of their.
And follow their regulations.
Yeah, and so what it means is all of a sudden, and she explained it to me. So I was talking to the Ask FIS person, she's probably in DC, where they do all the policy for this, and she was saying that the enforcement piece of this, or the inspection piece of this, is a roving thing. And so it's like the person who has that on their plate, it's like when they're in that hood, they may or may not decide to check in on Raul and his, because now you're a public warehouse. You're a public warehouse all of a sudden, as soon as you're gonna wholesale like that. And so and probably when you're new is probably when they're gonna check on you. They're like, oh, this guy came up. Oh wow, he's up in the mountains, and whoa, what's this? We better go give it a look. They'll probably, the kind of thing that they would probably go look at. If it looked clean and cool, they probably mark you as a low risk situation, and you probably don't see him again for very long. But it's one of these things that's roving. It could get you in trouble, and certainly if you're doing it without being filed, they could do something. It could lead to some enforcement action. So,
is that why when, let's say we take an animal to go get processed, it's not inspected, we don't have that under our belt, it says not for sale.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yep.
You could give it away or say you give it away or privately, but not to. They need a trail. They need a trail.
Exactly. It's the traceability. It's the traceability part. But yes, it's a technical.
So it's a.
But as far as this goes, I feel like the people that need to call on this is actually New Mexico grown directly. And so for anybody who wants to go in here, I'm happy to do this research and gain super clarity on it, but I'm pretty sure we as the TCEDC are going to become a distributor, because like I'm saying, we're going to aggregate your animals, we're going to hold them there in a big old freezer, and we're going to put tons of meat into freezer trucks and deliver them to Santa Fe and Albuquerque. That's going to be part of what happens here. And to do that, we're going to have to have that. So what I think is going to happen in the situation is that you're going to have to show them you say, we distribute through we slaughter there, and then they're the ones who do the delivery. They're the distribution house. And so you give them our certificate and you say, cool. That's, I think, the way that that is going to be.
And sorry, Lucas,
Yeah.
so that is a condition to participate, right, in the New Mexico Grown with Tradition program, right? So my situation,
Well,
I'm just wondering,
well, yeah, go ahead.
is it a requirement of, producers to carry that FSIS 5020-1 certificate if I'm providing product to local grocery stores? Where do you draw the line? And again, I understand the government, individual sitting in an office that looks at these things, they can't show up to your place.
Well, this is, I think, the technical answer to that, is if you own that location of distribution, you're legal. If you don't, you're not, right? So say, I've seen your product, Raul, in Arroyo, right?
Yep.
And if you happen to own that, and that you were delivering it there to sell, because you're still the owner, and you've taken it and now you're directly to the customer, believe that's legal. But if that ownership is someone else, then it's not legal.
So what I'm doing in Hondo is illegal? It's okay, I'm happy to, talk about my situation in full transparency because I appreciate traceability. I know where my product was processed, I know where it was raised. It's a true New Mexico grown, product. And so I think this is one of those regulations that I've thought about, right? And again, I try to take care of my product. I'm mindful of delivering it in, a freezer or whatever to the store, right? But who's to say that there's another producer out there that just lets it kind of sit in his truck while he runs into Walmart to pick up a few things, and then it's thawing out by the time it gets delivered to the store. I understand the intent behind the regulation, but at what point, do you say
So the USDA's vision, I think, there is, well, that guy's he's directed his customers, the accountability is right there. But as soon as you go to someone else who's then marketing or maybe even reselling to somewhere else, all of a sudden there's a gap. There's a gap in traceability and a gap in accountability. And that's what all the hullabaloo is about. It's about traceability. And if you're going direct, well, they know you went from the plant to your customers, and so that you're the end spot. But see, there's a gap. If they go to Ondo, then who was that? Well, there's no entity filed, there's no distribution entity filed or anything, an official entity that did that. So it kind of breaks the official traceability chain.
Now, let's keep in mind that New Mexico Grown is New Mexico. And so that is an initiative that is part of New Mexico. They hold regular meetings. There's a lot of input that we can be a part of. We can help build that. We've been a part of New Mexico Grown and the formatting and the building of New Mexico Grown from the beginning. And so they just like we're asking you guys to call the town and the county and what have you, we need to work with our people and make sure that they are listening. It's like the salesperson who's never done sales. If you're only selling online, you've never done sales, you don't know what the heck, we need to help shape that and mold that. And so, and by the way, Vanna White never got paid enough money to go back and forth. Just saying.
Let's do a couple more on here, and then if there's more at the end, we'll come back with this so we get through the content. But yes, sir.
This gentleman has the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was saying, how many of these people have a ranch? How many of these people have hogs? How many of these people are out there doing what we have to do? So like I say, we think it's correct and everything, but the ones that are making these laws are saying or going through books, this one looks good file. And we're here doing the work, but we don't understand the rules and regulations. Why?
The last thing I want to say, on record really quick. Here's the point, right? And so we're trying to encourage a local product. What difference does it make if I'm taking my product to a local grocery store or if I'm going to the farmer's market? right? And so that's the whole purpose of me doing the USDA inspected facility processing initiative, right? And so that's a regulation that I'm following, that's something that I've been mindful of, right? And that's what they've told us. You're good to go so long as you have a product that's been processed at a USDA facility. So now you're telling me we have to go to this Form 5020-1, which I totally get, something I thought about, but I just want to say that it seems like it might become an issue for some of these smaller producers.
Yeah, and there is this thing called the retail exemption. The retail exemption, I believe, they're trying to stay away from like supermarkets on that though. The retail exemption is hotels and restaurants are the main thing you see for the retail exemption. And as long as you're like really low volume, I think they allow you something like $107,000 in sales. So, I mean, it's not super small either, right? And that's something. You're grossing $107,000, that's quite a few beef that you moved. So that's maybe something you could check in, but I think with the supermarket, I think you're going to get a red X on that one, but you know, and that's something that maybe you call your local USDA guy and clarify whether or not someone's gonna whistleblow that.
Again, New Mexico grown, being in New Mexico, if you guys remember, there was legislation for state inspection. And state inspection and inspectors available for state inspection is for stuff that stays within the state. And so if you don't go across state lines, then regulation is a little easier. I don't know what we're going to look at, with the new governor, new administration, I really don't know. But it's up to us to speak up, and it's up to us, like you say, they don't know what they're doing most of the time. So it's up to us to point them in the right direction and to say, these are the true hurdles that we face. This is what we really face. Not what you read about, not what you research. This is the day-to-day. This is what we eat, live, and breathe, So we need to make sure that we get involved with that.
Just one question, in Raul's example, in one case, if he's delivering to the store, then he's a wholesaler. If he's at the farmer's market, he's a retailer. Is that the difference?
Yeah, someone else now. There's another party involved now that's selling that, right? It's not my animal, direct sales. Me giving it directly to a consumer. It's not another person who's going to have another step.
And my second question is around, is there a model for how you are going to purchase animals for your aggregation and distribution? For instance, with the live animal, is it just based on weight and whatever the market is? Or is there a component around, let's say one animal ends up, breeding choice and stuff. Is there a premium associated with that animal? If he does well like that, and if he select, maybe he gets a bump in terms of
that I'm gonna, just because I kind of see the writing on the wall on that, at least in the short term, and it's going to, we're not going to be able to do like a step program based on grazing in the short term, because I mean, I think I can say this with confidence that there are going to be so few animals that come through that grade at all, and we'll be lucky to see some select, and I don't see creating a big program around that. Now, just so everyone knows, there are some people who are some larger growers in the community that are talking about creating more aggressive finishing programs and utilizing this system to do that. And so that's going to be interesting, but I think we're going to stay away from that situation as far as us buying and us labeling. So if someone comes in and they want to do some kind of stockyard kind of stuff, like some concentrated feeding or something, I don't think we can tell them they can't use this facility, but it'll be their label. It won't be the TCEDC's label. We want to stay kind of in this grass-fed, kind of regenerative type scene with what we're doing, and I think our label is going to be as simple as pasture-raised and NM grown. I think that's where we're going to start. Is we're going to do what we need to do to get those claims onto the label, and then for folks who are wanting to finish out 100 animals and sell to maybe just Albertsons, maybe just whatever. They can do that, and we'll support them, but it's not going to be our label. We'll have our fine print on there because for regulations we have to have our fine print. but it's not going to be our marketing effort that's moving those animals, it'll be their personal effort.
And that's called a grow yard. I just learned not too long ago. So a grow yard may be coming to task to be able to help those who want grading behind their beef. And definitely, you know, like Lucas is saying, we would service them, would be a processing facility for them. If you guys decided to participate in something like that, you know, by all means.
We have one over here, real quick.
Thank you, Assistant.
So look, it's just, as a small producer, not being able to make that 1,000-pound requirement for you guys, really the best scenario for me is to bring them here, get them processed by the facility, and then get it back and do a direct sales. And then I don't have to worry about the 50-20 and all that. Right?
Correct. Yep, that's true, and that's what I would recommend. And who knows, maybe things change, maybe because Raul's maybe right, he knows more about New Mexico growing, and I might know more about Colorado growing, because that was, you know, my time versus his time. But it might be that, hey, like, we're seeing a lot of 900s that are looking good, you know. Let's tweak our requirement down to 900 because that's what's happening here in New Mexico. That's how we can help you guys make a little more. So then to your point, I think, is there's also going to be a premium we pay, not based on grade, but just based on working with us. We're going to do a market assessment, and we'll be at least a dime. We're going to see what we can bear, right? We're going to try to make it as appealing to you as we can, but at least a dime. And then you say your trucking and the fees at the, right? Because we won't have any fees. We'll have no fees. So my sense is you save the 5 that you would have paid at the sale barn for their fees, and when you get our 10, you actually make 15 and you're closer. And so you can kind of save on a few levels. And so yeah, maybe 900 is what the region's doing, and we figure that we can still make it work at 900, and that's what we evolve to. You know?
So with that rule, D20 or whatever it is, to obtain that, what is it gonna cost the producer? Is it cost anything for us?
The 50-20?
Yeah.
Oh, that, no, that one, yeah, that's just,
selling the meat.
that's just like, you're just filed now as like a public warehouse, like it's called, does it say it there? It's called that there, but it's called like the meat and poultry handlers database, or that's what the actual verbiage is when you pull that form up. And that's all it is. It's like, okay, you publicly declared yourself as a place that kind of like, that handles meat that goes out for wholesale. Like I say, I think the way we fly here is y'all will use us for that.
Exactly. I think that's what we want to make clear. You know, TCEDC is here to be able to try and hurdle through as many hurdles as we can for you. You know, that is part of the nonprofit that TCEDC is. Just because the Matanza is going to be a for-profit, you know, and we have the kitchen, which is a for-profit as well. The umbrella for these programs is TCEDC, and we are a 501c3. So we can then try and incorporate as much as we can. We're actually the only, you know, program that has taken on a meat processing facility. You know, I don't know what I smoked that day, but yeah, you know, it was good. Yeah, I mean, but it is, you know. So again, you know, we are trying to hurdle as many hurdles for you as possible to make this successful, because we understand the difficulties and all of the hurdles that are here in our community.
So basically, we thank you very much for doing all this, and all we're responsible is for killing it, and we're attacking it USDA, you know. But we gotta admit that Taos agricultural is going out the door, you know. The average age probably, I mean, is gonna be 55, 60 years old, when we're still ranching. You know, there's a lot of people coming in.
That's what we're doing, sir.
There's a lot of people coming in saying they want to be farming, and
right,
you know, and they want to try farming, and they want to try ranching and this, but they just see the positive side. You know, we're gonna go kill this one, or we're just gonna go put him in the corral. But they don't see the midnight New Year's when they're being born. and you're out there, you
Sure, no.
know. So we gotta admit to ourselves that health agricultural to raise animals like you want us to is almost impossible because it'll take our pockets. You know, we're lucky if we can have one that's a year old, year and a half to hold them. Because just one winter to keep them and then keep them all summer, another winter,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone here.
Yeah, and we understand that, and understand that with where the market is right now, it's particularly hard to do that, because you're getting such a good price by making the journey to the sale barn, and we understand that.
But
But if we're just competing with the market and we're paying above the market, there it is. We're just basing it on, you know, you save some gas, you save some time, and you put a little more in your pocket. That's, you know, as long as you can, and I understand that, it's certainly maybe not gonna happen right away too. But on the coal animal, when it comes to the example of a coal animal, as long as you're making more and we're saving your gas, is there any reason not to drop it off right here? And I don't see any reason not to.
Sam, one last point, I know we need to get through the rest of the program, Lucas, thank you so much for the space. This doesn't necessarily preclude producers from doing direct marketing themselves. I know there are a number of producers in the room that have very successful accounts in restaurants here in town that I'm guessing don't have the FSIS, you know, 5020-1 form filled out.
The retail exemption, it specifically writes in there restaurants and hotels. And so I think that's what makes that okay.
Right, so I guess the benefit to this is you get a lot of marketing done for you, right, when you partner with, you know, this program you guys are wanting to start here, which I think is a good thing for the local producer.
And again, so then let's just finish it just real quick, like the requirement, like check it out. Animal was born, raised, it's not all of these, it's one of these. Which to me, I'm seeing huge loopholes, and I don't know if you all, like, maybe some people looked ahead here and like, oh, well, animal was slaughtered or processed. To me, that means that you can buy it in Colorado and bring it here, and as long as TCEDC slaughtered it, you can do. To me, that defeats kind of the purpose of the vision, but it doesn't say all of these conditions have to be met. It says one of these conditions has to be met. That's how it's written. So interesting point, right? Just I think it's very easy to actually qualify. And then this is the one thing I understand is, to me, this is the big hurdle. This is the biggest hurdle. Because again, I think we're going to help you facilitate this. Anybody who wants to get approved, get in the approved supplier program, you're going to be able to fly by on the distribution part with using us as your like proxy for it. But the product liability, that's a thing. And I think $1 million policy is probably going to cost you $100-ish a month. It's going to be something like that. So it's like one of those things. As soon as you have some volume, that probably makes sense. When you're really small, it probably doesn't make sense. Okay, and again, we'll stay for questions. As long as questions come, we'll stay. But I'm just trying to get through the agenda. So mentorship. I'm just going to real quick, and then if Abby has anything to add. So, you know what we're going to do? We just finished our inaugural year. Next growing season, it's going to be another 10 junior paired with 10 senior farmers and ranchers. And it went great. Understanding networking relationships was a great takeaway. Technical hands-on learning was happening in abundance, and then there was also the classroom-based learning that happened. And here's a couple pics of the work that was being done. But happy to turn it over to you, Abby. Do you have anything to add, or people just want to ask questions to Abby about this program?
Yeah, I can give a little bit more context to things like this. Last year was a pilot program, so we learned a lot from how we executed the program, and Gabby and I have been working hard to synthesize that and already start the process for the design of the next year, which we'll start taking applications for mentors in November and for mentees in December. It'll be a 55-hour program, and both mentors and mentees are paid $21 an hour to participate, so that's a total of $1,150. And that includes 15 hours of workshop time, so you're paid to go to workshops and learn about financial planning, and Lucas led a workshop about labeling and slaughtering and meat processing. We had a workshop about cooperative development, and we had a workshop at Matt Sexton's property about applying regenerative agriculture principles. So that's like the education component of it, and then mentors get, next year we'll get 40 hours of on-ranch labor that's paid for by TCEDC with their mentees. There are a couple of mentors in the room. Raul did the program, Carlos did the program. Anyone else that I'm missing, I'm not sure. But yeah, we hope to have you guys back next year as mentors. But anyone who's interested in being a mentor has to have more than 10 years of experience in agriculture, and mentees less than 10 years of experience as defined by the USDA as a beginning farmer or rancher. But yeah, you can reach out to Gabby and I with any questions, or if you're interested in the program. Does anyone have any questions now? Love it. Well, you can, Carlos.
Hey, where do we sign up?
Right here, right now. I got your name, put your name on my list. I already have you down.
Do you mind sharing some initial findings and outcomes from the pilot program?
Yeah, that's a good question. Totally. And if you want to waltz back at our office after that, you can look at our visual evaluation that we did. We had a bunch of questions that we put on the wall with sticky notes that people put, whether they like agreed or disagreed, they learned certain principles. But yeah, like it says on here, I think the biggest takeaway for people was the relationship building, which was awesome. Raul's mentees are a young couple who just moved to Penasco. Returning to some family land there, I think. And yeah, they mentioned that they are excited to be working with Raul for a very long time, and so that was really valuable for them. I think the educational component was helpful for people, especially with the business planning people had mentioned. And yeah, I think not only like meeting the mentors, but meeting other mentees and just meeting other people in the program. Ranching and farming can be really isolating when people are living in rural areas and kind of embarking on this thing that feels really solitary, and connecting with a group of 20 plus other people was really helpful for everyone in the program. And from what we heard, Gabby, can you think of any other takeaways? Yeah, do you feel like that answers your question? Any other questions?
Cool, thank you, Abby. Great, she did such an awesome job on that project, and psyched to see that happen again next year, for sure. And I think that's it, folks. So unless you have anything else, like I say, the materials here on the table, there'll be several ways that you can get a hold of us, tcedc.org. And yeah, like there's some of the industry have actually taken advantage of like just coming in and giving some technical support. And that's there, as long as we have some margin to do that kind of support on a one-to-one basis, which I think is pretty special. And so that's there. But are there any other questions as far as?
Sorry, I want to interrupt to highlight a couple events that we have coming up also before we close out. One is a ranch tour at Sean Howard's property this Sunday, September 7th, and if you're interested, you can RSVP at the QR code here, but it's a really amazing example of how rotational grazing and adequate rest periods have been used to regenerate his parcel of land from like literally dirt to chest-high forage. And we're gonna start with a panel at the Angel Fire Community Center with some really amazing ranchers on that. So it's gonna be Kim Barman, who's president of Soil Health Academy, and she also runs CS Ranch. Patricia Quintana, who is a shepherdess in Taos, and has a long history of coordinating with rural communities for cooperative development and supporting women in agriculture. And then there's going to be Sean Howard on the panel, whose property we're going to be touring, and Pat Pacheco, whose cattle are at that property, and Tobias Duncan, who worked on a collaborative grazing effort in San Cristobal. So it's going to be an amazing panel first at the Angel Fire Community Center starting at 11, and then we're going to go over to Sean's for a ranch tour. So if you're interested in that, and there's free lunch. If you're interested in that, please scan the QR code here or talk to Gabby or I if you don't want to RSVP via QR code. Another thing that we have coming up next Saturday, the 13th, is a Ranching for Profit workshop. Is anyone here familiar with Ranching for Profit? Okay, they're an organization that I think is based in Wyoming. They're based somewhere in the West, but they travel around the West and do financial trainings for ranchers. And yeah, they have really high reviews. I think they're pretty well esteemed in the communities that they've worked in. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and it's going to be a little bit less about like business structure and tax reporting and more about like record keeping and financial projections. So kind of like individualizing your business plan based on what you were hoping to achieve. So anyways, that's going to be a really great event, and there's also going to be breakfast included, so you can RSVP. RSVP on the QR code. Yeah, that's all I have for announcements. Thanks, Lucas.
Are there any other questions?
Have you considered putting together perhaps a packet for all the categories of ranchers who, depending on what it is that they want to do, they would know what the costs might be and the requirements might be, so that they can really evaluate what it's going to take to raise that animal and bring it to fruition, shall we say? A way of assessing that?
So it's a really good question. And it's a really hard question because it depends on everybody's specific situations, right? Do you have family land? Are you leasing your land? Are you doing a heritage breed? Are you doing a more commercial breed? It's like there's so many factors that go into the economics of your program. So that's something that certainly we don't have like a module or something created right now. That's something I think that like the mentorship program actually is really well suited to kind of address, because that would be a question about, to my mind, to someone who's kind of getting into raising animals. The folks who've done it for 10 years kind of know their breed, know how they're performing, should have a handle on their economics. But again, that's another arm of the TCEDC and what we're providing is all these financial trainings and so forth that come through that can help the grower get a handle on that. But it's such a diverse kind of field and just how you're doing it that everyone's situation, is so.
I'm speaking more to the requirements, the hoops that somebody would have to jump through that may bear a cost or a particular commitment to signing a form, filling out a form, or submitting their information to agencies that they may or may not have wanted to do, and that sort of thing. What would the cost be? Because, for example, with organic farming, with veggies, if you want to be certified organic, somebody just doesn't come to you and say, okay, your farm's certified for $100. It's each individual product that has to be looked at. And each one has to be applied for separately. So is it similar? I don't know. In the ranching field, is it similar? What is someone facing?
I believe we have someone in the room who is currently certified with the AGA, right? Or have you kept that certification current, or did you let that go?
I let that go.
But, so we on our farm did the AGA too, but that was already like 15, we probably had it from 15 years ago till 12 years ago or something like that. And at that point it was really cheap. So this is the American Grassland Association who will come on your farm. At that point, they would double, they would send the auditor to your ranch, and they would run you through the gamut to make sure that you were meeting their requirement, and they could also do an animal welfare certification for you at the same time. So that's what we did. And it was cheap, but we had to pay that person a fee of, I don't know, maybe it was like $200 back then. So that was a cheap one. Because the organic one was way more expensive. That auditor was north of $1,000, I think significantly north of $1,000, and that's why we never messed with the organic one. But this is part of the whole plan here. As again, like for our project, you don't really need to do anything for us. Like, what you have to do is just do these things, and I'm gonna make you sign an affidavit. That's what it's gonna be. But it's not gonna cost you anything. You're just gonna have to sign that they have their life on pasture, and it'll be technical, and it'll include the exemptions, like, you know, for when if you're branding them and all that. And I'm not gonna be, I don't know if anyone has seen Whole Foods, their animal practice rating system, and to get all the way to number 5, I mean, you can't brand animals, there can be no castration, there can be data. It is intense to get to that level 5 of the animal welfare. It's not going to be that hardcore to work with us. Like, we're just going to want to make sure they live their life on pasture, that their grass, you never corn feed them or anything like that. The residue withdrawal, that's going to be us and the USDA that requires that anyway. The weight, just so that we can make the economics work. And then, as we just saw, the NM, we should be covering the NM grown requirement by killing it here. So we don't even technically have to worry about anything there. So to sell to us, I don't think it requires anything. It is potentially, I mean, this would be the cost, right, from the perspective of the grow yard or the feedlot person, is just that you're keeping them on grass in a situation where they don't grow very fast. Like, that's the cost. Doing grass-fed production is the cost in itself, right? But yes, all these certifications, I mean, that the grower will just have to research if they do want to get an organic. Okay, what does that look like this year? Is the USDA doing it, or do I have to reach out to a third party company that essentially provides the audit? Like, you know, that would be for individuals. But again, I would also say you can use the TCEDC, and we can help with technical assistance. We have outreach, we have some resource that can help people answer those questions and get where they need to be with the answer. Yeah.
So, what I'm understanding is, as a producer,
Hello?
okay, as a producer, what you're saying, and you're encouraging us, ranchers and producers, you're providing us this facility, you're providing us with the opportunity to avoid all of these classifications or certifications, because you will be producing our product, and then we can turn around and just retail it, sell it like that, retail without the wholesale, correct?
So we would take ownership of your animal,
Of the
and
whatever we
and
produce.
then we would do the marketing and the distribution on
Okay, all
it.
right.
You can do your own, and we'll give you a nice label, but it'll be simple. It'll like have your rank. We should be able to get a logo on there. We haven't bought the equipment yet to know whether or not we're going to be able to do some color or not. But it's likely it'll be a black, and we can do at least a black and white graphic, and then any contact information you would want, and then all the USDA requirements on that label. That we can get for you. Now, if you want to go beyond that, it's going to become a volume contract thing, right? So like I'm saying, like we're talking about this person who's maybe doing a feed yard, and maybe they do 200 animals, okay? Now, if they want claims on that label at that volume, we'll work with them, and we'll figure out. But it takes a long time. You have to send the claims to the office in Washington, D.C. They have to review it, and you have to explain how that's going to be verified. And all that's a process. And so with someone doing 5 animals with us a year, it's hard to justify all that extra work. But if someone's doing 200 animals, now our office can spend the time to go through the Washington, D.C. approval process and get more claims on the label. Carlos.
So just an observation on this minimum poundage. Whoever designed this, I wonder if they realized they were eliminating small breeds like Dexter cows that are really Dexter breeds that are becoming more and more popular. And you don't get a Dexter over 600-700 pounds. Just an observation.
You gotta take the pencil. I'm the one who designed it, and I've shown you my spreadsheet. Now I'll give you my justification for why I've chosen the thresholds that I've chosen. But it's ultimately, so here's the thing. There's been a soul searching over this last week as we've come to meet with you all, because right, everyone on the TCEDC staff is very committed to the notion of regenerative ag. We want this to primarily serve folks who are engaging and working in the regenerative ag space. These are truths. Now, does the regenerative ag community bring enough poundage and enough volume to this endeavor to keep the lights on? And that analysis says very, very doubtful. Or at least there has to be some kind of creative ways in which we make it work. Because if we don't keep the doors open, well, then there's the opportunity for everybody. And that's my biggest concern. Just so now I'll speak, personally as Lucas and me being, having a 15-year history and wanting to keep working in this field. And well, what are my conditions to help develop this? Is, well, it can't be run how it was run before, because the ways that it was run before didn't work and it fell on its face. And I'm not going to do that again. And I just, it's kind of an unfortunate truth that there's going to have to be some gray areas and there's going to have to be some compromises with the way that we fill the production schedule of this Matanza so that it stays alive. Because if we're just picky choosy, and you have to have a really, really high standard in some certain way to come in, and that it is allowing a lot of small and underfinished from a conventional kind of standpoint, using that word, underfinished carcasses, it's very likely that it will not survive. So we got to figure out how we fill the schedule while serving the community that's doing regenerative ag to the greatest extent we can.
And Lucas, do you have any idea what the per pound cost will be to process?
I do. It'll be in the low dollar range. So you're looking at roughly 100. We'll probably end up being like about 115 on the kilo rate for beef. Pigs will be something like 80 on the kilo rate. The smaller ruminants will be something like 50 on the kilo rate. And then the packing rate for vacuum sealing will be in the low ones. You're seeing a lot of processors now starting to get even close to like 150 and even above in some scenarios. We're trying to keep that like 115 to 125 is kind of what I'm trying to target for people, which I think is the best bet in town. So, yes, sir.
So, is there a separate rate for, like there's some USDA that will charge you a different rate if it's for custom? You gonna do that?
We're not even planning on having the custom be an option. Everything that runs through will just be USDA.
Okay.
It just makes it easier administratively. And like, what's the difference? I mean, usually it's a nickel or a dime. I don't really see a bigger difference than that. Or have you found someone who does a more aggressive differential than that?
Like where I go, it's up like 15 cents a pound.
Okay, that's pretty good. Well, and I don't know, so say we get the approval to go ahead and refurb this thing in the backyard, that's going to be an interesting question. Because that's there.
Yeah.
And the mobile, and to my mind, that's a big opportunity for maybe wild game processing, maybe custom processing. The vision for after we get moved out to the bigger one is not fully established yet, but it's going to be there. And that could maybe be a real good niche. Like maybe that's like after, because I can see this timing working pretty good. After veggies and fruits are through, like maybe it gets utilized like for that, for some kind of wash and pack, etc. And then we get into like the later fall, all of a sudden we create, because that's when there's the bottleneck for all the animals. And that's where we open up to a not for sale until February, say. And then maybe we close it or figure out some other purposing for the rest of the year. It'll be interesting what we do with that resource. But that could be a smart use of it. Yeah. Raul?
Yeah, really quick. Really appreciate your time and your expertise, Lucas. And certainly the team here at TCEDC, you guys are doing a great thing for the community. What kind of incentives are you guys going to be doing for producers, right? How are you going to get people to say, hey, I want to sign up, 20 animals with Lucas because I know he's paying $2,000, for one animal. Are you going to be looking at market trends? Obviously right now, you go to the market, we're looking at $4 a pound for a 400-pound animal. I mean, that's pretty high. So, I wonder what you guys are going to do to kind of quantify that.
Just beating the market, just beating the market, whatever it is. And the idea is a dime. And it's like I was saying, if we beat the market by a dime, and we don't charge any fees, well, then you save that 5 cents, so now you're 15 cents out of game, and when you're really local, now you've saved your driving time and your man time. So to my mind, for real local producers who are using us, if they're trying to use us as, if the opportunity cost is the sale barn, we beat it by 20 cents-ish, when all things are considered, which I think is pretty good.
That is pretty good.
And I think it's the kind of thing that it'll be a couple years, you know?
Right.
But all of a sudden everyone's like, dang, you can go right there, you don't have these fees, you don't have da-da-da-da-da, and people will pretty quickly learn that this is where you can actually make the most money with your animal. But again, we can't buy the calves coming fresh off the cows. That won't work.
Right.
So.
See, the big picture here as well is to make sure that whatever we're going to be investing in our facility here to make things work temporarily and to show proof of concept, then we've got another facility that we can work. I mean, again, TCEDC is programs. It's not the Mobile Matanza program. And so we do have farmers that we need to look out for as well. So, when there's veggie aggregation, we're going to be an aggregation center. We've got some ranchers that are farmers as well. We've got a small wash and pack facility already, that can help and has helped people from the Talpa community. And so, as this facility gets developed out, then we want to make sure that that aggregation center is available, to be able to continue earning income for TCEDC, to be able to reinvest into our nonprofit. And so if it's, the custom cut that we do, if it's wild game that we do, and of course serving the fruit and veggie aggregators, we ran through the De La Tierra Collaborative last year, a very successful orchard regenerative type program, that helped orchard growers, so there's a lot to TCEDC, and I know that most of the talk is about the Matanza program and great that it has taken us a long time. There's a lot of sweat and tears going into that, There's a lot of cuss words that have gone into programming, Look at the proposal and, you can't tell that, you gotta tone it down there a little bit. But, again, TCEDC is programs. We've got the kitchen. The kitchen in itself is being rebranded as we speak. We want to make sure that value-added products are being created in there. We want to make sure that as we work with the institutional market, that, patties are being provided, to the institutions. Institutional supplying for us is important. And so that there's a lot of different moving pieces, and it's really important for us to hear from you, the way we hear from you here, We want to bring you to the table. We struck gold with Lucas. Lucas had very particular requests when coming on board. And I made sure that I met them. I think his vision and mine are very similar. We are community oriented. We do look out for the community. We do invest in our community, and we do whatever it takes to make things happen. And so we don't understand no's. There's always a way around. He says, do I call him again? That's right. We're bordering on really, stalking, It's like when you have to call.
See, when it's like one or two people that's stalking, but if it's all y'all, then it's like a mob.
Exactly,
A coalition.
Exactly. We then become a coalition of people speaking out, It's not just Lucas and I harassing or stalking. And so but yeah, so again, we thank you guys, for being a part of this. Without you guys, whatever we do is useless. Whatever we try and achieve is useless. Our vision is making sure that we have the Abbies, and we have the Gabbies, and we have the Patties, because the youth is who needs to be invested in. We need to invest in our youth, and that our project is growing with the youth people. My God, I tell you, Battle White wasn't paid enough. I think I lost 10 pounds in the process by just going back and forth, We need the youth, guys, so thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your support more than anything, and know that we're here for you guys, and we really appreciate you guys being there for us. Wow.
That's really good, Mercedes, and really quick, and I know we're wrapping up. But I see a lot of economic development happening across the board with all these different programs, and really it's job creation at the end of the day. In my mind, I'm thinking, a marketing director could be working directly with Lucas, you know, talking to the institutions, the schools, the senior citizen centers, the people across the state that want to buy New Mexico grown beef, right? And so, again, there are many opportunities, right? We need a driver, right, to deliver the product down to these institutions. So again, job creation, I like the vision, really excited about where this is gonna go. So yeah, let's get behind this vision that we
Let's do it! No other questions? No one? Want to make sure? No? All right. Well, thank you guys. There's leftover food if you guys want to take. We've got baggies, we've got containers to take.